Hey BookTube, let's talk about Firstlife by Gena Showalter.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and today I want to talk to you about Firstlife by Gena Showalter. On audio, this is narrated from two points of view by Emma Galvin and Zachary Weber, and this is a YA dystopian. The plot is kind of complicated, but here's the gist of it. The main character here is Tenley Lockwood. She's 17. She is in the Prynne Asylum when we meet her, and that's kind of like a juvenile detention center, but more like a prison. She's there because she refuses to do what her parents want her to do after she dies. In this dystopian world, there are two realms that exist in the afterlife, and they are at war. One is called Troika, and it is the light realm, and one is called Myriad, and it is the dark realm. One is not better than the other, just one is light and one is dark. And these two realms are at war, and humans are essentially the battlefield. They want to come in and recruit humans to sign with them so that the humans, after they die, will go and be members of one or the other of these realms. Tenley's parents want her to sign with Myriad, but she considers this such a weighty decision that she refuses to sign with either Troika or Myriad. So she remains unsigned. There's also a place that you may or may not get sent if you don't sign with one of the realms, called the Many Ends, and it isn't even necessarily a real place that people all believe in, but it's rumored to be a real place, and it's not a place you want to go, which is why people usually will sign or pledge to one or the other of these realms. So basically the plot is Tenley has to make up her mind which realm she's going to sign with, and she spends essentially the whole book doing that. The narration is done by Emma Galvin and Zachary Weber. Zachary Weber has a very small part in the narration, and that only happens at the very beginning and then a couple of places very briefly interspersed throughout the book. In this book, there are two major side characters. Archer Prince, who is from the Troika realm, and then Killian Flynn, who is from the Myriad realm. And these two guys are laborers, that's what they're called, who have been tasked with the mission to recruit Tenley to their side. So at the beginning, there is some correspondence that happens between them and their superiors, and Zachary Weber narrates that. Archer is English, Killian is Irish, and Zachary Weber nails those accents impeccably. And I wish that he had had a bigger part in the narration because he, I think, would have made it so much better. Emma Galvin is one of my favorite narrators because she is perfect for voicing a YA female heroine who is spunky and scrappy and gonna fight the world and conquer, and she's not quite sure she can do it, but she's gonna try, daggone it. So she's just perfect for that. She has a huge amount of emotion. She's a true voice actor, and she has an ability to inject a lot of the sense of desperation that tends to go along with a dystopian novel. So she does that here. I had a couple of minor problems with her narration, and one was that she didn't do the accents very well. While Zachary Weber was, impeccable with his, she just kind of slid by. And the other thing was that during a lot of the straight narration of background stuff that's going on, essentially the narrator is talking. It's not dialogue and it's not action. She tended to go down on the ends of her sentences, which bugged me after a while. Now that hasn't bothered me in other books that I've listened to that she has narrated, but it did this time, and here's an example of what I'm talking about.
I'm grinning as I pass through the jelly air, a shower of warmth, a silken caress. Then I'm standing in the gloom of darkness, fat gray clouds hanging in an onyx sky, trees knocked over from the earlier tornado.
Now that may not bother you, and normally it doesn't bother me, but it did this time. It just kind of got on my nerves after a while. So yeah, those were my only problems with the narration. Otherwise, it was wonderful. And when I first heard about this book, I thought this premise was so compelling. One of the things that I read in the end of the ebook was a Q&A with Gena Showalter, and she's a Christian, and she talked about how the idea in scripture that there are light and dark forces and they are competing for your soul, and the whole idea of the afterlife and an eternal life. She loved those concepts, and they really were something that she wanted to explore. And I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. Except, yeah, in theory, it was amazing. There were several themes in this book that I really appreciated. And one of those was the fact that this life is just a dress rehearsal. What really starts happening is after you die. I like the idea that you have the freedom to choose. In having choices, if you choose not to choose, then that is in itself a choice. I loved the way that that played out in this book. But I had a lot of problems with this book. First of all, I really liked some of the side characters. Archer and Killian were pretty well developed, and I liked them on a very basic level. I think that they were pretty well defined, and I think that the way that their motives changed over the course of the story was a really good idea. And there is a potential love triangle that never really happens, but it's kind of hinted that it's going to happen, and I hate those. There were a couple of side characters, Sloane, Abishon, and then Clay, that I really liked. And although I think that Gena Showalter may explore their characters further on in the books that are to come in the series, I think if she had gone a little bit deeper with these two characters, she would have revealed more of Tenley's character. And that would have done a lot towards me liking Tenley as the main character. Now, Tenley drove me a little bit up a wall. And that's primarily because she considered this decision as to which realm to choose so weighty that she spends the whole book debating between the two. And, you know, it just ended up being one huge exercise in frustration and me going, Tenley, make up your mind already. I think that it would have been great to explore those choices in a way that didn't create all of that frustration for the reader with wanting the main character to just make up her mind. Also, regarding characters, I don't think that there was ever a definitive bad guy that was established. In the early part of the book, it's the guy that runs the prison, and then it's the prison guards, and then it's Tenley's parents, and then it's some other head person who then gets revealed later. It was never explained as to who was the real villain here. And because that was so vague, it was hard to get on her side and want to defeat the villain. You know, it just, that was never clear. And that kind of went into the world building, which, you know, you had these realms, but we didn't really know anything about them, other than one was light and one was dark, and Archer's from one and Killian's from the other. Now, as the story goes along, you get a little more backstory on these two guys, and that was fine because they explained a little tiny bit of the governmental structure of at least one of the realms. But that was it. All we knew is that they existed in the afterlife and that they were at war. No explanation as to why they were at war. No idea what started the war, or, you know, even any description about the realms. You just never got that. What you did get was a whole lot of a sales pitch coming from each of these guys trying to recruit Tenley to their side. Apparently there's something about Tenley that makes her special. Of course, she's a special snowflake. And so they each want her, or their, you know, their superiors really want her. And so they really push these guys to recruit her. And so yeah, I got a little tired of the sales pitch because it just got to be a real sales pitch. Like, you know, we don't care about you. We just want you to be on our side. Also, kind of along the lines of the world building was a lot of the violence that happened in this book. There was torture that happened at this prison that I did not think was appropriate for a YA novel. Tenley was so badly treated at this prison. And Showalter made a decision to turn her parents against her, and I always hate that in a book. A couple of other small problems I had were that the scenes in the book didn't connect one to the next. It didn't really make any sense as to why things were happening the way that they did. And even at one point, there's an extra character thrown in, and it's clearly a plot device. And I saw it coming from a mile away, and I thought, this is probably meant to expose yet another facet of Tenley's character. And everything it revealed about Tenley's character was in complete conflict with everything else that had been established about her character. This person that we knew, these things that she was feeling, didn't mesh at all. Now, speaking of not meshing, this is my primary problem with this book. I think Showalter took these spiritual ideas and tried to use them as an overlay for this dystopian world, and it did not make any sense to me. I don't know if that's because of my background, where I come from, my perspective, but it just did not work in my head at all. I didn't understand how you could have spiritual beings in an afterlife who use technology. That didn't make any sense to me, because I felt like, okay, either make it a spiritual kind of a thing or make it a sci-fi thing with a dystopian world. I just didn't get it. You know, you have these spiritual beings. Archer and Killian are both spiritual beings who have to inhabit a shell, like a human shell, in order to interact with the human world. And they were using technology as they did it. And even their shells, even though they looked like humans, when they were damaged or destroyed, their bodies would look like androids. And it was like, what? That just, in fact, I spent a lot of the book going, what? Why did, huh? I don't think I'm stupid. I think that it was just my own inability to reconcile these two ideas. Now, if you are a person that loves YA dystopian, then you will probably really like this book. But boy, for me, it just it did not work. So I initially rated this book 1 star. I was so disappointed, and it really broke my heart, like I say, because this premise was just so appealing. But after I thought about it and really put this review together, I started realizing that the themes that Showalter was trying to address and use were really important to me. And they're obviously really important to her. So I thought that warranted upping the rating just on those merits alone. So even though I don't think she accomplished what she set out to accomplish, I'm upping my rating to 2 stars. So I would love to know what you thought of this book if you've read it. Especially, I would love to know what your perspective is and was going in, and what kind of an emotional reaction that you had to it, or any kind of a reaction. Or did you just read it as a straight up dystopian? And what did you think of it in that respect? So let's talk about that. I can't wait to get into a discussion with you about that and hear what you think. So let's do that in comments, and that's it for now from me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.